Howdy, Trey McGathan here, and today we're going to be praising, then roasting, all 30 MLB teams. Let's start off with the Baltimore Orioles. Well, Chris Davis is finally gone, which means now you have a chance to start building up that farm system and being competitive for the future. Hopefully now you've learned that staying competitive years after you've stopped being competitive is a bad idea. You definitely should have traded Manny Machado sooner, and you definitely should have gotten more for him considering all of the prospects that you got for Manny Machado have not developed. Boston Red Sox. This team's bought and then cheated on their way to buying the 2018 World Series. And they proved this by cutting payroll as quickly as possible after winning that World Series championship and trading away Mookie Betts. Hopefully now you realize that the luxury tax isn't quite as bad as you make it out to be and you keep your future Hall of Famers, but who knows. New York Yankees. This team remains competitive at all times, and that's a very difficult thing to do in baseball. However, it's a lot easier to do that when you're one of the richest teams in baseball and pretend that you don't try to buy rings, of which you have failed to do tremendously for 13 straight years. Tampa Bay Rays. This is a highly competitive team in a very competitive division, and I admire the fact that in spite of them having a shoestring budget compared to most of their division rivals, they're still competitive. However, that comes with the caveat of the only reason why they're so cheap is because their owner doesn't want to spend money and their GM is pretty damn smart. Blue Jays. I understand the plight of being stuck in the American League East, which is always competitive. However, you had your shot in 2015 and you failed. You had your shot in 2016 and you failed. You had your shot in 2017 and you failed. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely admire the fact that you realized you weren't going to win a World Series and quickly retooled the roster to where you weren't spending ridiculous amounts of money. However, there is an expectation from Blue Jays fans that you need to win a World Series at some point, especially now that Vlad Jr. has come out as a future superstar. And if you don't do that, well, you're going to be ashamed of yourselves. The White Sox. Oh my God. Okay, well, in case you didn't already know, I'm a Royals fan, and the White Sox are my sworn enemy, so I'm going to be nice and say that 2005 was the most miraculous World Series run of all time. However, this team was the definition of uncompetitive before that, and after 2005, they continued to be the definition of uncompetitive. They are only now starting to gain ground because the AL Central is the weakest division in baseball. Cleveland Indians. You had a really competitive team throughout most of the 2010s, and considering how volatile the sport of baseball is, that is a very difficult thing to do, and I commend you for being able to do it. However, that comes at the cost of you blew a 3-1 series lead in the 2016 World Series. You got reverse swept by the Yankees the year after that, and then you got swept in 2018 and 2019. You straight up blew it. And that's something you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life, because not only do you have the lowest payroll in baseball, but you straight up aren't competitive anymore. And the only reason why you think you're competitive is because, again, the AL Central is one of the weakest divisions in baseball. You have a nice pitching rotation, but you have zero offense, and you're lying if you say otherwise. Detroit Tigers. Well, much like the Cleveland Indians, you had an incredibly impressive roster from the mid-2000s all the way until the mid-2010s. it's very commemorable that you managed to keep a team competitive for that long. However, much like with the Indians, you blew it. You had 2 World Series appearances and you got smacked around both times. Plain and simple. The Royals. This fucking team. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed the 2014 and 2015 runs. In fact, the 2015 was one of the happiest moments of my life, sports speaking. And I will always remember that year as one of the greatest in my life because the Royals broke a 30-year curse. However, they were fucking dog shit from 1985 to 2013. You'd be lying if you say otherwise. And then, right after they won the World Series, they went straight back into being dog shit. And now they're stuck in this weird position where they have a pretty high payroll for a team that's pretty bad. And then they decided, you know what? Let's keep the roster. Let's not sell all the too many pieces. Let's keep the roster around as if you want to compete. And I don't blame you, the AL Central's pretty weak, but you're the part of the reason why the AL Central is weak. You need to get better, and you're not. The Twins. Well, much like with the Cleveland Indians, they're a team that makes the playoffs and then gets swept. In fact, I believe they hold the record for most consecutive playoff losses. It might still be the Detroit Pistons, but I'm pretty sure it's the Minnesota Twins now. Because every time they make the playoffs, they get swept. It is actually impressive just how much the Yankees own you. The Houston Astros. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't have anything nice to say about you other than you're still competitive even without the cheating. However, it is impossible to mention you without mentioning the cheating, and your legacy as a franchise is always going to be tainted by the fact that your one World Series came at the cost of cheating in order to get it. Cheaters never win in my eyes. You can go fuck yourselves. In perpetuity. Speaking of teams that can go fuck themselves in perpetuity, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout are some of the best players in their positions in the league, and a future with them being in their primes is going to be must-watch baseball. However, Mike Trout has not made the playoffs since 2014, and in that 2014 run, he got swept by the Royals. In fact, Mike Trout has spent his entire career without winning a single fucking playoff game. And in the current direction the Angels are going now, it looks like that will continue to be the case with Shohei. You don't deserve the talents you have if that's how you're going to treat them. The Oakland A's. Well, much like with the Tampa Bay Rays, they've remained competitive for almost 20 years now, and that's more than admirable. The only issue is this team cannot win in the playoffs. I don't know why, I don't know how, but every single time they make the playoffs on a shoestring budget, they face a real team and then get their asses torn out. After a quick ravaging by insert team here. They've lost to the Tigers, they've lost to the Royals, they've lost to the Yankees, they've lost to pretty much everyone at some point in the playoffs. It sucks, but that's life sometimes. Seattle Mariners. The 2001 Mariners was the best team to ever exist. And 1995 was an absolute miracle run that saved your franchise even. However, that comes at the direct cost of, well, we haven't made the playoffs since 2001. And on top of that, we're one of the least successful franchises in not just baseball, but sports history. In fact, They're the only team in baseball that has not made the World Series at some point in their existence. And they've been around since the fucking 70s. Just amazing how horrible this team has been. Texas Rangers. Speaking of consistent horrible teams, the Rangers. You wasted Nolan Ryan. You were one strike away from winning the World Series on 2 separate occasions, and you found a way to lose both times. And I honestly believe that 2011 was your best chance to win a World Series, and you just straight up blew it. Considering you lost to the Cardinals, double fuck you. Atlanta Braves. It really sucks that you're having to deal with the injuries you have, and Ronald Acuna Jr. is likely to be a future Hall of Famer if he keeps producing the way that he does. You had a 25-year dynasty and only won 1 World Series out of it. And boy, oh boy, do you find ways to lose important games. Miami Marlins. You tanked your way into 2 World Series. In fact, you're one of the luckiest franchises ever in that regard, to where you only lost your first ever playoff series in 2020. That sort of luck has ran out on you, and I don't think you're going to be making the playoffs, especially in a division that's ideally as stacked as the NL East is, for a long time. Beat the Mets, step right up and sweep the Mets. Hide the kiddies, hide the wife. Guaranteed to have the rage of your life, because the Mets are really sucking at ball, knocking your testes over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to beat the METS Mets of New York town. Think about 2015 and cry about it some more. Phillies. Your fan base is fucking garbage. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say about the Phillies. That, and you have got to figure out a way to make the playoffs at some point. Ideally speaking, your roster's talented as shit, but you keep finding ways to miss out on the playoffs, and it keeps getting funnier every time. The Washington Nationals. You blew it up when you kinda didn't need to, and now that you have blown it up, that's kinda cements the fact that you're a one-and-done team. Also, could you change your logo? Because this is definitely the Walgreens logo. In fact, I'm surprised Walgreens hasn't sued you yet. Chicago Cubs. Well, much like the Washington Nationals, you blew up when you didn't necessarily have to blow it up, and now you're going to be paying the price for it, literally. 2016 was one of the most miraculous things I've ever seen in baseball history, and, well, with this blow-up, you've admitted that you're a one-and-done team. Cincinnati Reds. I love the attitude of this team. In fact, I really fucking hate the notion of unwritten rules of baseball, strictly because it is designed to prevent player expression. Unless it's specific taunting of people or threats, if you want to celebrate in baseball, you should be able to celebrate, and the Reds do this better than anyone. The issue is that it's pretty obvious that they were cheating when they had Trevor Bauer in terms of sticky substances. And, yeah, now that Bauer's gone, your pitching has come back to normal, and your hitting, surprisingly enough, rose Not exactly sure why, but it did. So yeah, that's fun. Milwaukee Brewers. You are a very competitive team in a very uncompetitive NL Central. And because of that, I think that you can have deep playoff runs so long as you continue the core. However, given your track record, you're always going to find a way to lose until you show me otherwise. So if you could work on just not blowing games, I could have you as a favorite for a World Series eventually. But first, that requires getting over the Dodgers, and, well, you've demonstrated that that's pretty tough for you to do. St. Louis Cards. Well, as a Royals fan, I should probably get this out of the way first. I fucking hate you and your fan base is scum. Now that that's out of the way, I really like the trade for Nolan Arenado, and in fact, I went to the I-70 showdown in Kauffman Stadium and he hit 2 home runs on top of several other extra base hits. He's your third baseman of the future. He's likely going to keep the Cards competitive, even with their fading dominance of pitching. And I like the current core that the Cards have. But all this comes with the caveat that I don't think you're ever going to be good enough to get past the cream of the crop of the National League. I don't think you're going to ever get past the Dodgers. I don't ever think you're going to get past the Padres. I don't ever think you're going to get past the Mets. I don't ever think you're going to get past even the Giants. You are the definition of a team that coasts on mediocrity and then turns it up in the playoffs. Pittsburgh Pirates. You know, with a lot of small markets teams, it's usually just because they don't have a lot of money that they suck. But you are a special case of being outright stupid and broke. And because of that, you won your last World Series in the 70s, and it's going to stay that way for a long fucking time. Diamondbacks. Well, take my rant of the Pittsburgh Pirates and then multiply it by 10. I really admire the fact that you managed to beat the Yankees in 2001. That's one of the greatest upsets of all time. And you gave Randy Johnson his much-deserved ring. Wait, no, Randy Johnson wasn't on that team. He was on the Astros at the time. However, point being... Shit, was he on the Diamondbacks? See, that's the problem. You had one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and no one can fucking remember when he played for you because your franchise is that fucking irrelevant. Also, can we get rid of that logo and just go back to the original one you had in 2001? That one was so much better. Colorado Rockies. You deserve the hell that has become your franchise. Sure, you're good at home, but you're dog shit on the road. And that tells me you're cheating. Could it possibly be that you found a method that's similar to the Astros' form of cheating and it keeps you mediocre? Probably. Considering the Diamondbacks broke the record for most consecutive road losses and you still have a worse road record than them, that really shows me that either Coors Field is the greatest home field advantage ever, in contradiction to what has happened in the past, or you're just cheating. Probably going to go with cheating. Dodgers. You are probably the greatest team ever devised. And in spite of that, you keep getting hurt. It must be incredibly frustrating to always have the talent and yet never have the resolve. I can't say I understand that sort of position because the Royals have never really had prime talent, and the few times they do, well, you saw Zach Greinke in the early 2000s. San Diego Padres. I love the new marketing scheme of Slam Diego, and I think that your core is built for the future, and it would be incredibly disappointing if you don't win a World Series. That being said, if you have looked at your division, you'd realize that, oh shit, we're probably not going to win a World Series, not unless we make some serious changes. And, well, I don't think your wallet's as big as the Dodgers or Giants. And if that's the case and you're the odd man out, well, that really sucks for you. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that bullshit. San Fran Giants. This team has miraculously turned what was a perpetual mediocre middle-of-the-road team that would always miss the playoffs into a team that is having one of the most dominant seasons in recent memory. And they did it somehow just by default. I honestly don't understand how the hell the San Francisco Giants have managed to have one of the best years in baseball when their division is so competitive. Keep it up. Let's see what you can do. However, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if next year you end up in the tanker and you continue that tradition that you started back in 2010. Prove me wrong, Giants. Anyways, that's been my praising and roasting of all 30 baseball teams. This has been Trey McGathin, and I'll be seeing you soon.